Ohad Fisherman on page 6.
Good morning, Your Honor. Natalie Snyder on behalf of the state.
Good morning, Your Honor. Jeffrey Sloman and Matthew Bellavetta on behalf of Ohad Fisherman is present before the court.
Your Honor, it's my understanding that Mr. Fisherman is present in court to surrender.
Just take us back a little bit. So there was an arrest warrant that the state of Florida issued for him, and he was out of the country on a honeymoon in Japan. You all agreed that to set aside the arrest warrant if he were to surrender today.
Correct.
And he's here.
And he's here, Judge.
Okay. So first things first, is the state of Florida moving for pretrial detention on these charges?
Judge, I cannot in good faith.
So you're not moving for pretrial detention. The bond schedule as set by the circuit, because the circuit has been given authority from the Florida Supreme Court to set its own bond schedule. The first-degree felony that he's currently charged with, it's a bondable offense, and the recommended bond is $15,000. So we'll start with that, Mr. Sloman, because I know that you and Ms. Snyder have discussed a little bit a bond agreement. There's no agreement, but you are entitled to ask this court to set a monetary bond by law.
That's correct, Your Honor. So thank you, and thank you everybody for allowing Mr. Fisherman to return from his honeymoon, and he did so last night. This morning, Your Honor, we have secured his U.S. passport and his Israeli passport, which we will turn over to the state at the conclusion of this hearing.
And there are no other identity documents besides the U.S. passport and the Israeli passport that you have in your possession?
That's correct, Your Honor.
And when you say secured, whatever bond you're going to propose to the court will include the turning over of these passports to the clerk of court?
That's correct, Your Honor. And to get to the meat of the coconut, so to speak, Mr. Fisherman, who's here, and his wife, for less than a year, actually their one-year anniversary is today. And his wife, Jordan Roy, who's here, and his mother-in-law, Tamar Roy, are all going to sign on a $260,000 personal surety bond to secure his presence through the entire court proceedings. We are also offering the court and the state a corporate surety bond in the amount of $25,000 issued by Royce M. Locke of Miami. Mr. Fisherman will be, or I presume will be ordered to stay away from the alleged victim, and those are the only restrictions that we are asking the court to impose at this time. Mr. Fisherman's net worth, we believe, is less than $1 million, so this is a significant bond to secure his presence. The fact that his mother-in-law is signing on the bond, I believe, is extremely significant. In the courtroom with us are approximately 10 or 15 of his friends and family who have come here to support him. And as I indicated, Judge, Mr. Fisherman was on his honeymoon at the time that he learned of the charges. He actually traveled to Japan the day before, arrived there, only to find out the next day that he had been named in an arrest warrant. So Mr. Fisherman has been a member of this community since 2020. He's a U.S. citizen since 2023.
The community being America?
South Florida.
Okay.
South
Florida
Florida
since 2020.
Right. Originally, in 2012, he immigrated from Israel and lived in New York. From 2012 to 2020, he lived in New York and then moved to South Florida at the start of the pandemic. He was in real estate in New York, and he had started a fledgling hummus business in New York, only to have COVID crash his business. He returned to South Florida, has been in the real estate business since 2020. In October of this year, he started his own real estate brokerage firm. To say that this has not been good for his business is an understatement. So with that in mind, Judge, Mr. Fisherman was in the Israeli army. He was honorably discharged. He is religiously conservative. He wraps tefillin every morning. He has been honored by various philanthropic organizations here and in New York. And so to say this came out of the blue is an understatement, but we have not seen the evidence yet. So, Your Honor, He has no prior record of any time.
And I just want to ask the state if they've verified, because you all have access to a defendant's criminal record, not only in Florida, but nationally. So when Mr. Sloman says that he has no prior criminal record, that means what?
That means that we have verified, Judge, that he has no criminal arrests in this state or others.
Okay. And my understanding is he's been living in the United States since 2012.
That's correct, Your Honor. And the case that he is before the court on is approximately 8 years old. And since the alleged incident, he's had no contact, obviously, with the alleged victim. He's had no contact with any of the alleged victims in any of the related cases involving the Alexander brothers. He's not named or hinted at being named in any of the federal proceedings that are going on.
So let me just verify also, because your information you're getting because you're doing your own research regarding any parallel federal charges, but I believe also the state of Florida can have that access as well. So do you want to chime in on whether or not the federal authorities at this point are investigating Mr. Fisherman?
I can't say either way, Judge, as far as what they're doing as far as investigating. I can say that I don't believe his name has come up yet.
And there's
that is one
clearly
of the state's hesitations about outright agreeing to a bond. As you know, they raided some properties, and based on that, they're going through that documentation. I don't know whose names are coming up. So I don't know what else is out there, which is part of the state's hesitation in agreeing to him.
Look, I respect your position, but at this point, there's no parallel federal case.
No.
And if it will be a federal case because of new information that comes out from today. From this point on.
I'm assuming.
Okay, you're assuming. All right.
So, Judge, I've actually reviewed the detention letter filed by the prosecutors in New York to Judge Reed in Miami and Judge Capone in New York, and there's no hint of a reference of any kind to Mr. Fisherman in that letter, which I have if the court would like to read it. But suffice to say that there is no overlap with any of the other related cases involving the Alexander brothers.
Let me ask you this. The personal surety that you suggest will be co-signed by the wife and the mother-in-law, that will be in the form of an affidavit. If I do go along with your bond proposal, it'll be in the form of an affidavit. But the equity for the $260,000, I think, still has to be signed off by me, right? You prepare those documents, your bondsman reviews it, and then the court signs off on it.
Yes, Your Honor.
Right, so, and you're not prepared to do that today?
We would like a reasonable time to get the paperwork in order. We do have Mr. Zemlock in the courtroom for the bond paperwork. So since I literally met my client this morning, he came in last night, but I've been speaking to him for the last week, we would ask for the court's indulgence to the beginning of next week to get all the paperwork.
I also want to bring up that $25,000 surety bond.
Corporate surety bond.
I believe that number came about from first appearance. I mean, we strive to treat similar defendants in a similar fashion.
Yes,
so in other words, that $25,000, you didn't just pick it out of the air. You got it from the other cases.
That's right, Your Honor. So that was consistent with Oren and Alon's bond that the court imposed. So that's correct. I didn't pick it out of thin air. So it is consistent with that.
All right. Anything else you want to put on the record?
Yes, Judge. I just want to say, as far as the state's position, we cannot agree to a bond. I will acknowledge he came from Japan. I will acknowledge he has no priors. But the state's concern is that this is, if you read the facts of the case, he's a principal. He helped the victim down while she was raped by the Alexander brothers. It did not seem like it was a first-time incident, just based on the facts. So we don't know what else is out there. And I think I started to say that earlier. The federal government, the FBI, is going through the results of their search. I don't know if anything else will come up. But the state's concern about agreeing to anything really derives from that.
All right, understood. And look, it goes without saying that you have a responsibility to the community as well as to the victim to make sure that you bring charges that keep the community safe. But the state of Florida also has a duty to the defendant to make sure that due process is ensured in their proceedings, which is why I respect that you are allowing me to set a bond, because by law, he is entitled to a bond. It is a bondable offense, as promulgated by the Florida legislature, okay? All right, Mr. Sloman, you did not suggest an ankle monitor. I think considering everything that's going on right now, it's still early on, and I can respect that the state of Florida is saying that they don't know what else will come about from the raids that the FBI conducted. I do think an ankle monitor is appropriate at this stage based on what was agreed with the co-defendants as to a level 3 ankle monitor. That is what I am going to impose in addition to a monetary bond. So the bond is set as follows. It will be a $260,000 personal surety guarantee by his wife and mother-in-law, the affidavit to be provided in the future, a $25,000 corporate surety bond. As I said earlier, the standard bond in this county for this type of felony is $15,000. So the $25,000 and the $260,000 is higher than the recommended standard bond. He will be placed on an ankle monitor, level 3. The stay-away order will remain in favor of the listed victim. The initials under Marcy's law will be placed in the stay-away order and served on the defendant. The U.S. passport and the Israeli passport that you have, Mr. Sloman, will be turned into the clerk of court. As the state says, Mr. Fisherman has no prior criminal record. That means no contact with the criminal justice system since he's been living in the United States of America since 2012, and he's been a Miami-Dade resident since 2020. He needs to be booked and processed. So today was the day for him to turn himself in. I need fingerprints and I need a booking photo. So I can reset this case for Friday for you all to get the personal guarantee documents compiled, and I can reset this for Friday.
Judge, as far as the booking, I just, corrections, are they able to do it from court? No, okay. The detectives, there's some confusion at Miami Beach, there's someone on their way, so he just needs to be ordered to stay in the
So what you're saying is I can't take him in here?
I guess not.
No?
Defendant will be taken into custody, Your Honor, in order to be processed
He
for house
will or
arrest.
he won't?
He will be taken into
Okay, so
custody.
you guys can take him in from court here today.
He will be taken in, yes.
Right.
Liaison will transport him to TG.
Do I need a detective here for any reason?
Not at all.
Okay, I just want to make sure, because I'll send them if they don't.
The formality of the arraignment, you filed a notice of appearance and demand for discussion. No, you did not, I'm
So
sorry.
we did, Your Honor.
You
We
did.
filed it yesterday. We filed a formal notice of appearance demanding jury trial, not guilty plea, and discovery, and asked for a reasonable time for motion.
That's fine. Initially, when we dealt with this last Friday,
Yes.
it was a limited notice of appearance. Now it's a full notice of appearance.
notice.
So he's been arraigned today. I'll just set it report rate bond and status on Friday. Does he need to be brought to court on Friday?
No.
Okay, so the case will print and we will just have a discussion. All right, Mr. Fisherman, the stay-away order is what I'm most concerned about. I'm going to ask the state to put on the record the initials of the listed victim.
MW.
MW, you need to stay away from that individual. So that's a 500-foot restriction from where they work or where they live. You understand that? And you can't send messages through third parties. So no direct messages from you to the listed victim, no messages through third parties. You understand that?
I understand.
Okay. Is there anything else that I have to address? No?
Did you want to advise Mr. Fisherman's wife and mother-in-law?
About what, the stay-away orders?
No,
Or
about the bond.
So you're going to provide me an affidavit from
Okay,
them.
that's fine.
And you'll bring them to court on Friday. Between you and the bondsman and the family, you all will prepare those affidavits. If everything's in order, I sign off on it. If there's something amiss, I will address it on Friday.
Wonderful.
Okay?
Thank you.
All right, thank you. So, Mr. Fisherman, please follow Officer Gayton